For centuries, the Donari Empire had spread its influence across the stars with cold efficiency, consuming worlds like a machine with an insatiable appetite. Known throughout the galaxy as conquerors without equal, they prided themselves on their flawless expansion record. 37 star systems had fallen beneath their banner, each one subdued with minimal resistance. When their deep space scouts first detected Earth, it was classified as a low-threat world, a young, divided species with outdated technology and no visible interstellar capability. On paper, it was an easy target, a routine conquest. Commander Kang, supreme leader of the Donari fleet, stood aboard his flagship, the unyielding fist staring at Earth through the main view screen. The planet glowed blue and green, wrapped in delicate strands of cloud and mist. To him, it looked fragile, primitive. He ran a scaled hand along his jaw ridge, almost bored by the sight. Another harvest world, he said with casual certainty. Their technology is 2 centuries behind ours, still burning fossil fuels, no warp drives. Their probes haven't even left their moon's orbit. They won't pose a problem. Standing beside him was Officer Kim, his second-in-command and one of the few voices in the fleet who dared to challenge Kang's assessments. She didn't share his confidence. "Commander," she said, her voice measured, "our intelligence division has flagged several anomalies. Their data suggests the humans have survived multiple extinction-level events. Their culture is saturated with fiction about alien invasions, planetary war, and advanced technology, almost as if they've been preparing for this scenario." Kang laughed quietly. All evolving species fantasize about the stars before they ever reach them. Dreams of conquest, fear of monsters. It's a biological inevitability, he waved her off. They're just primitive minds imagining threats they can't possibly comprehend. But Kim pressed on. "We've detected energy signatures that don't match their known technology. They appear to be hiding something. Some of their satellites emit patterns we've never seen before, and their global communication systems highly advanced for their apparent development level." Kang turned from the screen with a scowl. "You think a species that hasn't even colonized their neighboring planets is hiding something powerful enough to threaten us? We've conquered empires far older and more advanced. This will be the 38th. Prepare the conquest protocol." Within hours, the Donari fleet repositioned itself over Earth's largest population centers. Their silvery hulls gleamed in the sunlight, reflecting off the oceans and casting long shadows over major cities. Cloaked ships decloaked, positioning thrusters fired. The sky filled with the silent threat of orbital domination. From New York to Tokyo, Cape Town to Sao Paulo, millions of people looked up to see alien vessels hovering like silent predators. Kang gave the command to initiate global broadcast. In a matter of seconds, every screen on Earth, from smartphones and laptops to television sets and billboards, flickered and displayed the scaled, yellow-eyed face of Commander Kang. "People of Earth," the translated voice echoed in every language known to human civilization. "I am Supreme Commander Kang of the Donari Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration into our dominion. Surrender your governments, your resources, and 10% of your population as labor. In return, we offer survival and eventual citizenship within our glorious empire. You have 6 Earth hours to comply. Choose wisely." The message was clear. The Donari weren't offering peace, they were offering submission. Inside a hidden military complex beneath the Rocky Mountains, the world's highest-ranking leaders gathered in an emergency session. The room buzzed with simultaneous translations, but the emotion was universal: urgency, disbelief, and fear. General Park slammed a fist on the table. "They've finally come. We've prepared for this moment for 60 years, ever since the Roswell incident. This is what we've trained for." Admiral Joe added, "Orbital defense platforms are powered up and ready. They're still cloaked. The Donari haven't detected them. We still have surprise on our side." From behind a bank of screens, the NASA director spoke up. "The moon base is operational. All gravity weapons are primed and waiting for command." After a tense debate, the Earth Defense Council voted unanimously to reject the Donari ultimatum. President Han was chosen to deliver the response. On every screen across Earth, the calm face of the world's united leader appeared. "To the Donari Empire," she began, "we respectfully decline your terms. Please withdraw from our system immediately." When the message reached the unyielding fist, Kang barked out a laugh. "They refuse? Do they truly believe they can resist us?" Officer Kim, now visibly uneasy, studied the human message again. "Commander, I've never seen such global unity from a developing species. They're not panicking. They're preparing." Kang dismissed her with a scoff. "Then we'll show them what defiance earns." He pointed to a small, uninhabited island in the Pacific. "Target that. Fire the main cannon." The unrelenting beam of energy struck with merciless force, vaporizing everything in a blinding flash and sending tsunamis across the ocean. The Donari had fired the first shot. They expected Earth to crumble. They had no idea what was coming next. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a classified military installation known only to the highest echelons of power, tension simmered as leaders from every continent gathered for what would become the most important meeting in human history. Large monitors on the walls played the Donari broadcast on loop, the scaly, condescending face of Commander Kang demanding Earth's surrender, demanding people and resources like a landlord collecting rent. But instead of panic, the room buzzed with something else: readiness. General Park, a grizzled veteran with sharp eyes and a steady hand, slammed his palm onto the conference table. "They finally showed up," he said grimly. "We've waited decades for this." Around him, admirals, scientists, and intelligence chiefs nodded in agreement. President Han, calm but visibly tense, stood at the head of the room. "Status of our defenses?" Admiral Zhou responded immediately. "Orbital platforms are operational and still cloaked. The Donari haven't detected them. We've been pinging their comms quietly, gathering telemetry. They still believe we're technologically blind." The NASA director chimed in next. "The moon base is fully manned. Gravity weapons are primed. Mars Command confirms their platforms are standing by. Europa and Proxima stations have also acknowledged readiness." President Han took a breath, then glanced at a nearby display showing a countdown, less than 5 hours remaining before the Donari's ultimatum expired. "Is the public aware of any of?" "No, ma'am," said the chief of security. "We've maintained blackout protocol. But once we move, it'll be impossible to hide." She nodded, resolute. "Then we tell them." That single decision marked the end of decades of silence. Within hours, every major broadcasting network was overridden. People across Earth on subways, in coffee shops, hospitals, farms, schools stopped what they were doing and looked toward the nearest screen. What they saw was President Han standing in a secure command room, flanked by military officials and scientific advisors. "Citizens of Earth," she began, "today, we face a threat from beyond our world. The Donari Empire has demanded our surrender. But what they don't know, what they couldn't have guessed, is that we have been preparing for this moment for over half a century." Gasps and whispers erupted around living rooms, offices, and town squares as President Han detailed the truth. The 1947 Roswell crash had not been a weather balloon, but the beginning of a decades-long covert program involving the reverse engineering of alien technology. She spoke of underground facilities beneath the Rockies, under the Arctic ice, and hidden deep in the ocean trenches, each one designed to decode, adapt, and integrate knowledge from dozens of alien encounters. The footage that followed was undeniable. Stealth spacecraft lifting from desert hangars, soldiers training with gravity-based weaponry, engineers welding together hybrid drives using alien alloys. And then came the most stunning revelation. Earth had already colonized Mars, Europa, and even sent expeditions beyond the solar system. Humanity had not been waiting in fear. It had been building quietly. The world didn't erupt into chaos. Instead, a strange calm settled over the population. Panic, the Donari had expected. But this This silent resolve spreading like fire through cities and villages alike? That was uniquely human. Back on the unyielding fist, Commander Kang watched the broadcast in stunned silence. "This is not possible," he muttered. "Their civilization should not be capable of this level of advancement. They're supposed to be centuries behind." Officer Kim said nothing for a long moment. Then, quietly, "I try to warn you, Commander. The anomalies, the coordinated responses, the fiction. Maybe it wasn't just imagination. Maybe it was rehearsal." Kang's jaw tightened. "No matter. They've revealed their hand. We respond." He pointed to the screen. "Destroy the island. Let them know we are not to be mocked." The Donari cannon fired. The blast hit with cosmic force, obliterating a remote Pacific island and sending shockwaves across the ocean floor. The explosion was meant to instill fear, but it did something else instead. It galvanized the human race. Within minutes, cloaked satellites dropped their stealth veils, revealing a lattice of orbital defense platforms. Sleek, angular ships lifted from hidden hangars buried beneath mountains, oceans, and Arctic tundra. Bases on the far side of the moon blinked to life. From Europa, Mars, and Proxima Centauri, human warships aligned into formation. Earth was no longer defending a single planet. It was defending a network of worlds, born from decades of quiet preparation. Back in the command center, General Park stood in front of a large display showing the mobilizing fleet. He tapped the glass gently, his voice almost reverent. "We're ready." Beside him, Admiral Joe murmured, "The Donari wanted to see what we're hiding. Now they will." Across Earth, people looked to the stars, not in fear but in defiance. The Donari had come expecting sheep. Instead, they found wolves in orbit. Far from Earth, in the vast heart of the galaxy, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council came alive in a rare state of emergency. Representatives from over 300 sentient species filled the chamber, each seated in environmental pods tailored to their biology. Some breathed ammonia, others required radiation, while a few shimmered as beings of pure energy. The urgency in the room was palpable. The Donari Empire had invaded Earth without authorization, without proper classification, and now their forces were in full retreat. That alone would have drawn attention. But what stunned the Council was what followed. Earth had fought back and won the first engagement. A holographic projection hovered over the chamber, displaying live battle footage transmitted directly from the Donari fleet. Council members watched in silence as sleek human ships emerged from orbit and from the moon's far side. They saw cloaked defense platforms activating gravity-based weaponry, disabling 3 Donari vessels within minutes. No other Level 2 civilization had ever done such a thing. For many in the chamber, it was not just surprising, it was unthinkable. Council Elder Yan, one of the oldest and most respected figures in the galaxy, took the central platform. His form, a shifting mixture of vapor and light, hovered slightly above the floor. When he spoke, his voice was translated simultaneously into hundreds of languages. "Representatives, we are gathered in response to a violation of protocol and a potential shift in galactic balance. The Donari Empire attacked a world that may, by ancient classification, fall under protective designation." The Donari ambassador, Sol, stood abruptly, his posture tense. Earth was not classified as protected. It was labeled a primitive species, suitable for standard expansion under the Empire's rights. "We followed protocol." A murmur ran through the chamber. Council members exchanged wary glances. Yan gestured, and the central display changed to show Earth's solar system, with data overlays and timestamps. "Our archives indicate that Earth has been visited by no fewer than 7 species over the past 5,000 galactic cycle. In each case, the visitors failed to return or lost all contact." He paused. "The Council designated Earth for observation, not conquest, pending further classification. That data was buried deliberately. The question is, by whom?" Representatives stirred uncomfortably. Across the chamber, the Keeper of Council Records, a crystalline entity named Archist, stepped forward. With a gesture, it projected a series of sealed files into the air. Donari Command did not request a full species assessment before launching their invasion. Had they done so, they would have seen the red flag. Sol growled in frustration. Are we now to be punished for oversight? An insectoid delegate from the Chell Federation responded harshly. It wasn't oversight. It was arrogance. You assumed because humans hadn't colonized their solar system, they weren't a threat. Now your ships are burning in orbit. As tensions rose, Jan raised his voice once more. This situation goes beyond military failure. It speaks to something deeper, the classification of humanity. The chamber dimmed slightly as a new sequence began. The display now showed fragments of human history, ancient wars, recoveries, technological leaps made under pressure. The Zul ambassador, a being of shifting iridescent membranes, spoke from its pod. Humans are what we term a variable species. Their progress comes not through stability but through crisis. Their capacity to adapt borders on the unnatural. Another representative from the Neuron Confederation nodded. Their physiology alone is remarkable, resilient to radiation, temperature extremes, and trauma. Their psychological profiles suggest rapid learning under stress and an unusual ability to integrate foreign technologies. Arcust added more evidence images of human scientists working on alien devices salvaged over decades, footage of hybrid spacecraft built from scavenged parts. They'd been learning from each encounter, quietly, efficiently, hiding it until now. A sudden interruption came from the Donari side. Then what do you propose? Sol barked. That we treat them as equals. As if they didn't steal everything they have. The council quieted as the chamber doors opened. A single human walked in. Ambassador Lee, Earth's first official representative to the Galactic Council, wore a dark suit and a calm expression. He walked with purpose to the central platform, flanked by security drones but unafraid. Honored representatives, Lee began, his voice steady. We did not choose this confrontation. The Donari Empire came to our world uninvited. They demanded our surrender, our people, and our resources. When we declined, they responded with violence. We responded with survival. He paused, letting his words settle over the chamber. We do not seek vengeance, but we will not be subjugated. We did not start this war, but we intend to finish it, if forced. Then he activated a data projection showing human colonies, Mars, Europa, Proxima Centauri, and more, some known, others cloaked in secrecy. Even if Earth were destroyed, humanity would survive. Gasps filled the room. In that moment, the illusion shattered. Earth was not a primitive backwater. It was a sleeping dragon. The council fell silent as Elder Jan stepped forward. Ambassador Lee, your people have watched us from the shadows, prepared for what we never expected. The question now before the council is simple. Will humanity be welcomed as friends or feared as a threat? Lee answered without hesitation. That depends on how we are treated. And with that, the course of galactic history changed. The decision was made just hours after the Donari's failed show of force and Earth's stunning military response. World leaders, convened in an underground command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, came to a unanimous conclusion. The time for secrecy was over. For over 70 years, humanity had prepared in silence, hidden behind layers of denial and misinformation. But now the world needed the truth, and the people deserved to know what had been done in their name. At precisely 900 hours UT, a global broadcast hijacked every active screen on Earth. In city streets and rural homes, in classrooms, hospitals, and factories, people stopped what they were doing as the familiar insignia of the United Nations faded into the image of President Han. Flanked by leaders from every major nation and senior officials from the Earth Defense Force, she stood tall, her voice steady and solemn. Fellow citizens of Earth, she began. Today, we face an unprecedented threat. The Donari Empire, an extraterrestrial civilization, has demanded our surrender. But what they didn't know is that we have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. Her words rippled through living rooms and public squares alike, but it was the footage that followed that shook humanity to its core. The broadcast cut to a video taken in black and white, grainy but clear, the infamous 1947 Roswell crash site. The camera panned over twisted metal, strange symbols, and non-human remains being carried under heavy guard. Then came color footage. Engineers in underground labs reverse engineering alien propulsion systems, early tests of anti-gravity drives deep in desert bunkers, and the gradual formation of what would become the Earth's Defense Force, hidden from public view. President Han's voice continued, overlaying scenes of classified facilities and long-denied technology. Since Roswell, our governments have worked together in secret. We pooled resources, shared discoveries, and built a network of protection not just for Earth, but for the generations to come. The broadcast revealed the massive orbital platforms disguised as communication satellites, each one armed with gravitational compression cannons and advanced shielding. It showed test flights of hybrid spacecraft launched from Antarctica and lunar bases under construction as early as the 1992. Then came the biggest revelation of all. Images of sprawling domes under the red sky of Mars. Biodomes buried beneath Europa's icy crust. A sprawling settlement orbiting Proxima Centauri's red dwarf star. Each colony self-sustaining, operational, and inhabited. Thousands of humans had been living off-world for years, trained in secrecy, ready for the day Earth might fall. The reaction across the globe was a mixture of awe, disbelief, and pride. Conspiracy theories were replaced with confirmation. Fear gave way to resolve. Children watched with wide eyes. Elders wept. And somewhere deep inside, humanity began to understand. They were not alone, and they had never been helpless. Meanwhile, aboard the Donari flagship Unyielding Fist, Commander Kang was livid. He replayed the broadcast over and over, each time growing more enraged. They lied. They deceived the entire galaxy. Officer Kim, ever composed, placed a small crystal on the command console. Our intelligence team managed to access fragments of the Galactic Council's sealed archives, she said quietly. Kang activated it, and an array of holograms appeared, 7 past invasions of Earth, the names of now extinct species. Transcripts that referred to Earth as a quarantine world, Kang read aloud, voice tight. No successful conquest. Contact discouraged. High anomaly risk. Species demonstrates unpredictable resistance and adaptive technology absorption. He looked up, stunned. They knew. The Council knew what this planet was. Why weren't we told? Because, Kim replied, someone wanted us to fail. Back on Earth, the final phase of the broadcast was underway. President Han stepped aside as General Song, head of the Earth Defense Force, took the podium. Her face, lined with decades of service and secrets, was firm. For generations, she said, we've operated in the shadows. We've recovered technologies from wreckage, visitors hostile and otherwise, and turned them into tools for survival. Our greatest strength wasn't just science. It was our unity. The footage behind her changed again, showing multinational teams working side by side in zero gravity, engineers from rival nations collaborating in underground labs, soldiers from every corner of the globe standing shoulder to shoulder in alien environment. No single nation did this alone, Song said. Humanity stood together, quietly, relentlessly, preparing. In that moment, the world shifted. Political lines blurred. Old rivalries lost their edge. For the first time in recorded history, the people of Earth saw themselves not as isolated countries, but as a single species standing on the edge of something far greater. In orbit, Earth's defense grid flickered to full power. Energy shields activated. Cannons aligned. Across Mars, Europa, and Proxima, colonies reinforced their perimeters. On Earth, volunteers flooded into command centers, emergency shelters, and supply hubs. This wasn't just a military response, it was a civil awakening. And in the skies above, for the first time in history, ships of Earth-born design stood in defiance against a galactic power, not as rebels, not as victims, but as equals. 3 days after Earth's defiant broadcast and the devastating counterattack that left 3 Donari warships in ruins, the Empire's reinforcements arrived. 80 warships emerged from hyperspace just beyond Pluto's orbit, dark and vast, their hulls glinting like blades against the stars. The flagship, Imperial Dawn, led the fleet, a dreadnought-class supercarrier bristling with weapons, accompanied by cruisers, destroyers, and dozens of fighter carriers. At its helm stood Admiral June, a battle-hardened veteran with a long record of ruthless conquest and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. To him, Earth was just another minor target that had gotten lucky. But as the Imperial Dawn crossed Neptune's shadow and neared the inner solar system, something felt off. Scanning arrays reported no welcoming formation from Commander Kang, no clear battle line, no triumphant position over a subdued world. "What is the status of the Vanguard?" June asked sharply. His tactical officer hesitated. "Scattered, Admiral. Some are positioned behind Earth's moon. Others are hiding in the asteroid belt. Several have gone dark. June's eyes narrowed. "Hiding? From primitives?" A communication request lit up his console. Commander Kang appeared on the screen, his usually proud and sharp features dulled with fatigue and shame. "Admiral," Kang began, "you must approach with caution. These humans, they're not what we thought. They've destroyed 3 of our ships already and damaged several others. Their weapons, their tactic." June cut him off with a sneer. "Save your excuses. You were unprepared. I've read the battle logs. You allowed them to surprise you. That will not happen again." As the Imperial Dawn and its armada advanced toward Earth, alarms began blaring across the bridge. "Multiple small craft approaching," the tactical officer reported. "Vectoring in from multiple directions. Mars, the asteroid belt, Jupiter's moons. They're using stealth tech, comparable to our own." June scowled. "Activate defensive screens. Launch all fighters. Let's remind these creatures what Imperial discipline looks like." But the humans were coming for a frontal assault. This wasn't a battle, it was a hunt. Swarms of sleek, agile attack craft launched from hidden bases scattered throughout the solar system. They didn't target Donari hulls. They didn't waste firepower on shields. They struck with surgical precision communication relays, sensor domes, engine arrays. They slipped past shields, planted disruptors, and vanished into space again before countermeasures could lock on. One by one, Donari ships began to lose coordination. Communications failing on Battle Group 4. "We've lost engine control on Verdict's hammer. Fighter response delayed. They're scrambling our targeting systems." June's second-in-command turned toward him, pale. "They're using our own tactics against us." June slammed his fist against the console. "Then we adapt. Launch interceptors. Deploy wide-range MP nets. Re-establish formation." As the Donari regrouped, Earth's true strength was revealed. From under the red dust of Mars, from under the ice of Europa, and from long dormant stations in the asteroid belt, larger human warships began to emerge. These were not the nimble fighters that had been darting through Donari. These were Fortress-class cruisers and carriers, black, silent, and bristling with strange protrusions. "New human vessels entering the field," the sensor officer announced, voice rising. "They're not engaging conventionally, they're projecting spatial anomalies." June turned sharply. "Explain." I don't know, Admiral. The space around them is bending, rippling. 3 of our destroyers just vanished. No explosion, no debris. They're just gone." In the command deck of Earth's flagship Defender, General Song monitored the results in silence. "Dimensional phase shifters," her science officer murmured. "Field stability holding. 4 uses remaining before critical thresholds." Song gave a tight nod. "Make them count." Back aboard Imperial Dawn, June stood frozen as more Donari ships blinked off sensors, one after another. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "They're a level 2 civilization." His chief science officer responded grimly. "Not anymore. Back on Donari Prime, Emperor Gil stood in his war chamber, receiving fragmented reports of the disaster. The mighty reinforcement fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being torn apart by a species the galaxy had once dismissed as barely spacefaring. His court of advisors watched as the Emperor's face twisted with fury. "No more games," he hissed. "Prepare the Novasphere." Gasps filled the room. The Novasphere was a weapon of myth, a planetary eraser, banned by the Galactic Council millennia ago, after the Zenith War had nearly torn the galaxy apart. "But, Majesty," his war minister stammered, "its use violates every known law." "I don't care," Gil snapped. "No primitive race makes a fool of the Donari Empire and survives." The order was given. A support ship carrying the Novasphere was dispatched, its sole mission, to reach Earth and erase it from existence. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, emergency discussions exploded into chaos as news of the Novasphere's deployment reached them. Ambassador Lee stood silently at the center of the room. Then, calmly, he activated a display, showing Earth's colonies, Mars, Europa, Proxima, and more. "Destroy Earth," he said, "and humanity lives on." The war wasn't over. But the hunters had become the hunted. And the galaxy had finally seen what Earth truly was. Not a target, not prey, but the beginning of something new. On board the Imperial Dawn, Admiral June stared in silence at the transmission from Donari Prime. The order had been given: deploy the Novasphere. Even among the most battle-hardened veterans of the Donari Empire, the command carried weight. The weapon wasn't just feared, it was forbidden. June's jaw tightened as he looked at the encrypted authorization blinking on the screen. By Imperial decree, it read, "Earth is to be cleansed. All assets secondary. Deploy the Novasphere. Total erasure required." He stood motionless for a long moment, ignoring the nervous glances from his bridge officers. Behind him, the massive war machine he commanded hummed with energy, 80 ships strong. The pride of the Empire, now reduced to carrying out an act of galactic genocide. "Launch the carrier," he said finally, his voice devoid of emotion. Below deck, a heavily shielded support vessel disengaged from its magnetic clamps. The Novasphere was housed inside, pulsing with a faint green glow, like a dormant heart waiting to awaken. Quietly, it drifted away from the main fleet, setting a course for Earth. On the bridge, June's science officer approached. "Admiral," he said cautiously, "Council laws forbid this. Deploying a planet killer is grounds for galactic sanctions, possibly war." June didn't answer right away. He watched Earth grow slightly larger on the central view screen. It looked peaceful, calm seas, swirling clouds, streaks of light from orbital ships zipping through the upper atmosphere. Nothing about it said threat, and yet it had pushed the Donari Empire to its knees in a matter of days. "I know the laws," June said quietly, "but the Emperor has spoken." A soft chime interrupted the tense silence. "Admiral," said the comms officer, his voice shaking, multiple ships inbound at superluminal speed. "Configuration matches. Galactic Council peacekeeping forces." The room froze. Within seconds, a dozen vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel, forming a wall between the Novasphere carrier and Earth. They bore the markings of 12 different species, each one a signatory of the Council's ancient peace accords. Their weapons were hot, their intentions clear. A direct transmission arrived. It wasn't a demand, it was an order. "Cease deployment. Immediately." June exhaled slowly, then looked down at the glowing icon on his console. Activate Novasphere. He could press it. He had the authority, but doing so would violate every code of honor he had sworn to uphold. Not to mention, it would brand the entire Donari fleet as war criminals. He stood there, torn, until the comms officer turned again. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Commander Kang." The battered face of Kang appeared on the main screen. He looked exhausted, pale, his scales dull. "Admiral Kang said with uncharacteristic calm, 'You can't do this. I've seen what they're capable of. If we use that weapon, they will never forgive us, and the Council will never forget. June's fingers hovered over the console. He thought of the soldiers he'd lost, the humiliation of retreat, the Emperor's fury, and then he thought of the humans, not groveling, not begging, fighting with everything they had against impossible odds. Not monsters, not savages, just people trying to survive. He stepped back. "Open a fleet-wide channel," he ordered. A pause. Then a soft beep. June's voice echoed through every Donari vessel in the system. "This is Admiral June. The order we've received is in violation of Council law. It violates our code, our principles. I am assuming emergency command." Gasps rippled across the bridge. "All ships," he continued, "target the Novasphere carrier. Immediate termination. All fighters stand down. We are not murderers. We are warriors." There was a pause, a breathless moment of uncertainty. Then 3 Donari cruisers peeled away from formation and fired. The support ship carrying the Novasphere exploded in a brilliant, blinding bloom of light, one final warning flare against the darkness of what might have been. In the Earth Command Center, cheers erupted. On Mars and Europa, crews shouted in relief. Across the Council fleet, officers leaned back in stunned silence. June stood motionless as the light faded from the screen. He knew what he had just done. It was mutiny, treason, and perhaps salvation. A quiet voice broke the silence on the bridge. "The Emperor will never forgive this." "I know," June replied. "But maybe the galaxy will." Back on Donari Prime, the Emperor's rage was volcanic. He hurled a data tablet across the throne room as reports confirmed the destruction of the Novasphere. His inner circle stood at a distance, unsure whether to speak or remain silent. "He disobeyed a direct order," the War Minister said. "He must be executed." The Emperor said nothing. His face was stone, his eyes fixed on the stars. At the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Lee watched the playback in real time, his expression unreadable. Then, he looked to Elder Yan. "Your peacekeeping fleet saved our world," Lee said. "But June may have saved all of us." Elder Yan nodded slowly. "He has bought time. Now we must decide what comes next." And far above Earth, where warships had once gathered to destroy, now they simply held position, silent, watching, waiting. The first step toward peace had begun. 6 months after the near annihilation of Earth and the stunning mutiny that saved it, the galaxy was still recovering from the shock. The Donari Empire, once thought invincible, had fractured. Its fleets were scattered, its political core shaken. And at the center of this ship stood a species that had, until recently, been considered irrelevant on the galactic stage: humanity. Now, under the high dome of the Galactic Council's Great Hall, the largest assembly in centuries had gathered. Representatives from over 300 sentient species filled the tiered chamber. They had come to witness something no one had expected, least of all the Donari themselves: the signing of peace between Earth and the Donari Empire. On the central platform, flanked by twin columns of light, stood 2 figures who had once faced each other across the battlefield: Admiral June and Ambassador Lee. June's once ornate military armor was gone. He now wore the simple formal robes of a decommissioned officer, his rank stripped, his fleet reassigned. Yet his posture was unbroken. He stood tall, his head high despite the disgrace in his homeland. Ambassador Lee, by contrast, had risen in stature since that first tense appearance. Now regarded as one of the most influential diplomats in galactic politics, he carried the weight of Earth's new role with quiet resolve. Between them floated the Council's sentencing scroll etched in hard light, rotating slowly with the formal charges against the Donari Empire: unlawful invasion, attempted planetary genocide, violation of galactic weapons treaties, and breach of sentient rights. Elder Yan, luminous and ancient, floated to the center as the hall fell into hushed silence. "The crimes committed by the former Donari leadership are undeniable," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. By ancient law, the punishment for such acts is exile to Torvis. A murmur ran through the room. Torvis was infamous, a prison world of ash, storms, and silence. Few who were sent there lasted more than a decade. All eyes turned to Earth's delegation. Ambassador Lee stepped forward. Honored Council, the people of Earth have considered this matter deeply. We have suffered. We have lost lives. But we also believe in something greater than revenge. He paused, letting the moment settle. Punishing the Donari may satisfy our anger, but it will not build peace. Instead, we propose something different. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Even June blinked in surprise. Lee continued, let the Donari leadership not only accept responsibility but participate in rebuilding. With us, on Earth and beyond. Let them learn our cultures as we learn theirs. Let them contribute to repairing what they help damage, and in doing so, let them change. Elder Yan tilted his head slowly. You offer rehabilitation? Yes, Lee said firmly. Supervised, transparent, collaborative, and public. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Many delegates were stunned. A few were skeptical, but others, especially from species that had once clashed violently with their neighbors, nodded in understanding. June stepped forward slowly. If this offer is real, he said, then I accept. Not as an admiral, not as a Donari warrior, but as someone who's seen the cost of arrogance. I will serve. I will learn. After a long moment, Elder Yan raised his glowing arms. So be it. The Council accepts Earth's proposal. The Donari will serve 10 years of rehabilitation under Earth's guidance. Their empire will be restructured, their weapons restricted, but their place in the galaxy restored, if earned. The chamber applauded, a slow ripple of something rare in galactic diplomacy. Outside, news of the treaty spread across the galaxy. On Earth, bells rang in city squares. In Donari colonies, stunned silence gave way to cautious relief. Peace had not been forced upon them, it had been offered. The following months brought changes no one could have predicted. Donari engineers arrived on Earth and were assigned to reconstruction crews in the Pacific. They worked alongside human builders, learning architecture, safety codes, even humor. Human children, once taught to fear aliens, now drew pictures of blue-scaled friends helping plant trees. Former Donari soldiers enrolled in history classes, reading human texts, studying wars, revolutions, and reconciliations. Some laughed at the absurdity of Earth's chaotic past. Others were moved to tears by stories of endurance and forgiveness. And slowly, mistrust began to thaw. A year later, in the heart of New York, a new structure was unveiled, the Galactic Embassy Complex. Representatives from 87 species set up permanent missions there, including a full Donari delegation led by June himself. He now served as liaison, bridging the Empire's recovery and Earth's rising influence. Standing at the entrance of the complex, June greeted a group of schoolchildren touring the facility. One of them, a 10-year-old girl, looked up at him with wide eyes and asked, "Were you the bad guy?" June smiled, kneeling to meet her gaze. "I was," he said gently, "but I'm trying to be something better now." Above them, banners flew not just with the flags of nations, but with the sigil of a new alliance and emblem stitched from Earth and Donari symbols combined. Peace had not been easy, but it was real. And for the first time, in a galaxy divided for millennia, two once bitter enemies were building something together. Not as conquerors or conquered, but as equals. 3 years had passed since the peace treaty was signed, and in that time Earth had transformed. Where once it was seen as an isolated, primitive planet on the galactic fringe, Earth was now the capital of a growing cooperative of civilizations. The scars of invasion were still visible, in some places memorials, rebuilt cities, the occasional flicker of pain in the eyes of those who had lived through the first wave. But something stronger had taken root in their place. Unity. In New York, where the old United Nations headquarters once stood, a new structure now towered over the skyline, the Galactic Embassy Complex. Its glass walls shimmered with integrated tech from dozens of worlds. Inside, diplomatic delegations from 87 species maintained a constant presence. It was the most diverse political building in the known galaxy. On this particular morning, representatives gathered for the inaugural session of the Terran Cooperative, a coalition founded on shared defense, scientific collaboration, and cultural exchange. Earth wasn't just a member, it was the heart of the initiative. The session opened with a familiar voice. President Bak, once a mining colony foreman and now Earth's elected representative to the stars, stepped onto the central stage. His speech was simple, honest, and clear. "Fellow sentients," he began, scanning the faces of beings from dozens of species, "we meet today not as conquerors or conquered, but as equals united by the lessons we've learned and the struggles we've endured. The Terran Cooperative is our answer to the old ways of domination, fear. It's our commitment to a new future." Applause echoed through the chamber, tentacles tapping desks, wings fluttering, vocal cords of various configurations producing sounds of agreement. Behind President Bak, a large display lit up showing the Cooperative's first major project, the Galactic Academy of Sciences, to be headquartered on Earth. Scientists from every member world would be invited to collaborate on advancements in medicine, clean energy, agriculture, and interstellar navigation. Knowledge that had once been hoarded by empires would now be shared freely. The Donari delegation, seated prominently near the front, stood and offered their support. Leading them was former Admiral June, now the official liaison between his people and Earth. Though he wore a civilian robe rather than a military uniform, his presence still commanded attention. "The Donari were once feared," June said when he took the stage later that day. "We used to believe power came from control, but Earth taught us something different, that true power comes from understanding, from cooperation, from change." Few in the audience could have imagined a Donari warrior saying those words just a few years earlier, but the rehabilitation program had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. Donari culture, once rigid and conquest-driven, was evolving. In shared labs and classrooms, Donari and human students now worked side by side. In joint military exercises, Donari veterans trained under human commanders. The transformation wasn't just political, it was generational. Back on Earth, the ripple effects of this new era were everywhere. School curricula included alien languages and history. Public transit announcements played in multiple galactic dialects. Restaurants in cities like Nairobi, Toronto, and Bangkok served fusion dishes, blending human and alien ingredients. Entire industries had been born overnight, and humanity was adapting fast. More importantly, Earth's reputation as a technological latecomer had vanished. Its unique ability to integrate diverse technologies from gravitic shielding to regenerative medicine made it invaluable. Human engineers became known not for inventing, but for improving, for making things work in ways their creators hadn't imagined. And while the galaxy adapted to Earth's rise, the Galactic Council also began to reform. Elder Jan, still luminous and ageless, stood before the Council to announce the passage of a new directive, the First Contact Protocol revision. For too long, Jan said, our classifications have relied solely on technology level. Earth has taught us that adaptability, resilience, and creativity must also be considered when engaging new civilizations. The new protocols required peaceful observation and measured engagement with developing species. Gone were the days of unannounced landings, manipulative trade, or covert interference. Worlds like Earth would now be given the chance to rise on their own terms. But the recognition went even further. The Council voted by an overwhelming majority to officially designate Earth as a protected Nexus world, not just for its genetic ties to long-lost progenitor species, but for its unique cultural position. Earth was now considered a crossroads, a place where different species, technologies, and ideologies could meet and merge. Back on the surface, people celebrated in unexpected ways. Not with fireworks or parades, but with cooperation. A Neuron musician collaborated with a Vietnamese composer on a piece that blended alien harmonic frequencies with human strings. A group of Donari architects helped design floating residential platforms for climate-threatened island nations. And in one classroom in Johannesburg, a 10-year-old boy showed his alien pen pal how to play basketball over a holographic link. The alien was terrible at it, but laughed the whole time. Humanity had not only survived first contact, it had redefined it, not through domination, not through surrender, friender, but through something far more difficult, building trust. And as the Turan Cooperative expanded, 23 member worlds and counting the rest of the galaxy watched closely, some with hope, some with fear, but none with indifference, because Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a promise. The sun was setting over the Pacific when the first anomalies were detected. High above Earth's orbit, in a classified research facility embedded within an old asteroid mining station, alarms lit up across every console. At first, the readings were dismissed as sensor errors, background radiation, gravitational drift, standard anomalies. But the data didn't fade. It sharpened, intensified, and it was moving. Dr. Ham, Earth's leading physicist and now chief science officer for the Turan Cooperative, stared at the display. The energy signature wasn't from any known stellar body, ship, or natural event. It pulsed in irregular intervals, almost like a pattern. Almost alive. Within minutes, the signal was confirmed by outposts near the edge of the galactic disk. It wasn't coming from a nearby system. It was coming from outside the galaxy. Word traveled quickly. Within hours, emergency conferences were held across Earth, Mars, and Proxima. The Galactic Council convened its science branch, and encrypted channels lit up between members of the Turan Cooperative. Everyone agreed on one thing. This wasn't natural, and it wasn't random. It was coming closer. Back on Earth, in the observation deck of the Earth War Museum built on the rebuilt Pacific Island once destroyed by the Donari ambassador Lee, stood with Council Elder Jan. Together, they watched as the sky slowly faded from blue to deep violet. "Are your people ready?" Jan asked, his glow pulsing faintly in the dimming light. Lee didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out over the museum grounds below, where human children were playing alongside Donari youth. Scientists from Nuran, Chell, and Zol delegations walked side by side, discussing shared projects. The very existence of this piece had once been impossible. "Humanity's never been ready for what comes next," Lee said at last, "but we adapt, and we never face it alone again." In a sealed council session days later, Elder Jan addressed the assembly. "The disturbances detected from beyond the galactic rim do not match any known species or energy classification. The signatures are growing in strength. Their movement suggests deliberate trajectory. The question before us is no longer what is it, but how do we prepare?" The council voted unanimously. A joint expedition would be launched to investigate the phenomenon, led by Earth with full Turan Cooperative support. Ships from across the galaxy were redirected, prototypes were upgraded. Long-range FDL drives were pulled out of testing labs and pushed into full deployment. At the same time, Earth's covert off-world assets, long considered its hidden trump cards, began activating. On Mars, what appeared to be a standard research colony retracted its solar panels and unfolded into a war-ready command post. On Europa, deep under the ice, sleeper teams were revived. From the asteroid belt to the moons of Jupiter, seemingly benign trade ships unveiled hidden armaments, communication relays, and stealth systems. Operation Sentinel Horizon went live. But Earth wasn't just preparing militarily. Its scientists, diplomats, and strategists worked day and night to coordinate species with wildly different technologies, languages, and ways of thinking. Building a response force from such diversity was a logistical nightmare, but humanity had long excelled at chaos. Former Admiral June, now Earth's Special Advisor on Defense Integration, coordinated efforts between Donari engineers and human tactical teams. Once bitter enemies, they now stood shoulder to shoulder reviewing strategies for defense in unknown space. "The threat isn't just to Earth," June said during a press briefing. It's to all of us, and we'll face it as all of us. Meanwhile, at the edge of known space, early recon ships began sending back fragmented data, static-filled images, glitches, and long-range scanners. One report included a partial visual something vast, blacker than space itself, shifting through the void like a shadow that consumed light. Then came silence. 3 ships went dark. Not destroyed, not destroyed, not confirmed lost, just gone. Dr. Ham reviewed the telemetry for the 3rd time, then turned to his team. "We're not looking at a fleet," he said. "We're looking at a phenomenon, a force. Something that doesn't travel through space as we know it. It folds through dimensions. This isn't war as we understand it." In the next council meeting, Ambassador Lee laid out Earth's position. "We've seen extinction before. We've clawed our way back from global wars, plagues, environmental collapse. But what's coming now is different. It doesn't want territory. It doesn't want resources. It doesn't negotiate. It erases. He paused. "But we are not the same species we were 10 years ago. We've built alliances. We've earned trust. And we've learned that standing together isn't just noble, it's necessary." The chamber fell silent. Then, Elder Jan stepped forward. "A new era is upon us, not of conquest or control, but of resilience. The galaxy's future now rests in the hands of those who were once underestimated. Earth, the Nexus world, will lead this mission." As preparations for the expedition neared completion, people across the galaxy watched the skies, not with dread, but with determination. From a fragile blue planet had come a species that refused to yield, that faced the impossible again and again and endured. And now, once more, they would stand at the front of the unknown, not because they were fearless, but because they refused to run. The fleet was assembled. Above Earth, in the upper reaches of low orbit, dozens of ships hovered in a silent, glittering formation. Earth-built cruisers, reformed Donari warships, Neuron pulse shield escorts, Zol observation vessels, and vessels from a dozen other member worlds of the Tehran Cooperative. Together, they formed the most diverse and perhaps most uncertain armada in galactic history. They weren't gathered for conquest. They weren't even sure they were heading into battle. What awaited them beyond the galactic edge remained unclear, but one thing was certain: something was coming. And whatever it was accelerating. In the control deck of Earth's flagship, the S-Horizon Breaker, General Song stood before a panoramic viewport, hands clasped behind her back. Around her, officers from multiple species worked at hybrid consoles, inputting last-minute trajectory data, coordinating supply lines, and calibrating deep-range scanners. She had commanded Earth's defenses during the Donari invasion. Now, she was leading Earth beyond the edge of the known. Behind her, Ambassador Lee entered the deck quietly, his expression calm but resolute. "Everything's in place," he said. Song nodded. "Then it's time." Back on Earth, in a broadcast watched across 300 worlds and colonies, Ambassador Lee appeared once more. The image was simple. No dramatic music, no military regalia, just him, standing in front of a quiet field beneath the open sky. Behind him, ships could be seen streaking upward into the atmosphere. "Citizens of the galaxy," Lee began, "when we first encountered the Donari Empire, they believed Earth was a primitive world. They mistook silence for weakness. What they found was something else, something none of us truly understood at the time." He paused. "We are not the strongest. We are not the oldest. We are not the most advanced. But humanity has always carried one trait that defines us. When the impossible comes, we face it anyway." Across the galaxy, beings of every shape, color, and biology watched in silence. Lee continued, "From the frozen shores of our ice ages, to the ashes of global war, to the vacuum of space we've endured. And each time, we learned, we built, and we reached out." He stepped to the side as the screen behind him changed. Images played, humans and Donari planting trees on the Pacific island where the invasion began. scientists from multiple species collaborating on medical breakthroughs, a child from Europa, speaking both English and Zol dialects in a classroom full of hybrids. "We've made mistakes," Lee said. "Terrible ones. We've fought among ourselves. We've been blind, but we've grown. And now, together with our allies, those who once feared us, those we once feared, we face a new challenge. Something that threatens not a planet, not a system, but all of us." The image shifted again, this time to data feeds, sensor recordings, the distant anomaly pulsing like a heartbeat in the void. It doesn't speak. It doesn't threaten. It just moves. And when it reaches a galaxy, it erases. Lee turned back toward the camera. "I won't lie to you. We don't know what we'll find. Some of us may not return, but this is not the first time humanity has stood on the edge of extinction. And it will be the last time we push back." He smiled faintly. "When we were young, we used to look at the stars and wonder if we were alone. Now we know we're not. And we've learned that the greatest strength in the universe isn't firepower. It isn't speed. It isn't shields. It's each other." A final image filled the screen. Earth, viewed from the moon. Peaceful, whole, defended. "This isn't just about survival," Lee said. "It's about who we are, who we choose to be, and what kind of galaxy we want to leave behind." He lowered his voice. "We didn't start this journey alone. We don't finish it alone." Then, with a quiet nod, he ended the transmission. On board the Horizon Breaker, final launch orders were given. Primary jump path locked. All systems green. Fleet acknowledging formation protocol. General Song turned to the window as stars shifted slightly, distorted by the pre-jump energy field. She took a long breath. "All ships," she said, voice steady, "this is General Song. We don't know what's waiting for us beyond the edge. But I know what's flying beside me: warriors, scientists, explorers, defenders. If this is the end of something, let's make sure it becomes the beginning of something better." A beat of silence. Then the jump engines lit up, one by one. In a cascade of light, the fleet tore across the stars, disappearing into the unknown. And on the ground below, people watched. In homes and plazas, in bunkers and classrooms, on space stations and orbital rings. They watched the ships vanish. But no one cried, no one panicked. They had seen this before. And they believed, because Earth had taught them not just to survive, but to hope. High above, the stars closed behind the fleet. And somewhere, beyond the edge of everything they knew, a new story waited to begin.